Hi everyone, it's Shamila Ramjawan coming to you from the Red Corner Chat, and today I get to speak to Kerina Govender, who's ex-South African now living in London in the UK. Kerina studied in Durban. She's formerly from Sea Tides, and she was at DUT, Durban University of Technology, where she graduated in technology, and it's quite a qualification that Kerina has, because it's maybe a male-dominated sort of arena, and she's going to take us through that, how she went into that field, and then moving on to Cape Town. Hello, Kerina.
Hi, Disham. How are you?
Good, thank you. Yourself?
I'm good, thanks. So with me, I studied actually electronic engineering, and then I went into the IT sector. I had a few jobs in Durban where I got exposed to more in the information technology side, got involved in software testing, and it actually, exposed me to different companies, to travel as well. And I think that's how I ended up in Cape Town. I applied and found a position at CSG International, and as a QA engineer. And then I worked with the company for about 4 years, which I loved quite a bit. I got to explore Cape Town, the beautiful mountains, the scenery, as well as living on my own, which I'd never done before. So that was quite nice. And then I wanted to explore a bit more what's out there in the world. And I applied to London, which I've got a position, and I moved in March this year. So I'm a quality engineer as well, at Gamesys in London at the moment. Yeah.
Such an interesting journey, Kerina. I know in Durban you lived with family, and then now you had to move to Cape Town. That was a whole transition, learning to adapt in a new place, in a new province, far away from home, especially coming from a close-knit family. How was that transition for you?
It took some time. I think I used to phone mom and dad quite often. Also, mom sending food parcels often, because back home, I'll be honest, as staying at home, you petted quite a bit. And moving to Cape Town, is a eye-opening for me. I had to do everything on my own, do my own laundry, cook my own food eventually, and then also travel alone, because back home in Durban, dad used to take me everywhere I wanted to go. So it was a huge adjustment. But at the same time, I feel like I became independent. And if I look at myself now to back then, I feel like I've grown a lot, drastically. And so big adjustments. You meet a lot of friends, meet a lot of people, you explore together, and you also find yourself in times like this. You find what you like. So I found that I love nature a lot. I used to go on a lot of hikes. I started playing beach volleyball, started spending time with a lot of friends. So, you tend to do the stuff that you want to. And you find yourself in I would say, living alone, which I've done. Yeah.
So the small town girl,
yeah,
moving from Durban to Cape Town, and then moving from Cape Town to London.
Yeah.
Take me through that transition and how you're adapting, because I think you ended up in London just when COVID started and you went straight into lockdown. So take me through that. I think that was most interesting to hear from you.
Yeah, so it is a bit difficult, I'll be honest. I was lucky enough when I did relocate to London. My brother was in London for about 3 months. So I managed to, it was an easy transition to have family with me, to spend time with my sister-in-law and my cutest niece, meeting her for the first time as well. And they were around for about 2 weeks. So that helped me. And then they left, and then I was all alone in London. COVID hit. I went to work for the first 2 weeks. I met my colleagues, and then everything was online thereafter. I was in my apartment. I think I'd never tried not to leave at all. And that's when it became a bit more difficult, because you don't see friends and family that often. You're in a new country all alone. And at the same time, you starting a new job. So it is difficult, and you're also so scared that you don't want to get the virus, because if you do, you're in another country, you don't even know how the health system works in London. and you also don't have family nearby. So, you try to stay indoors as much as possible. But at the same time, I can say what gets me going is going into the kitchen. I never thought I'd say these words, but it keeps me occupied a lot. Trying new recipes, trying recipes that I used to love eating at restaurants, like making dim sums. It took me 6 hours, but I got there. So that was quite nice. And then now I feel like, spending time at work, because it's been 6 months, and now I understand my role better within the teams, and you get more involved, and I feel like my time used within work have that focus, which keeps me going. And yeah, so that's that there.
So moving to London, was it a culture shock? Because you moved to a totally new place, packed up and left Cape Town. Just take me through that, because I'm trying to understand now. You're traveling alone. You just left Cape Town. You left South Africa. You moved to London. You're starting a new job. You get there, and it's COVID-19 lockdown pressure. How did you feel emotionally? Were you excited about it? Were you overwhelmed? Were you tense? You didn't meet people from your company yet. I just want to get a feel about that.
I'll be honest. I was initially, when I was applying to London, I was so excited, because I love traveling. I love to explore. That's why I moved to London, to travel to different countries and meet new people and cultures. But when the time is when you're about to move, you're so tense. It's like, is this the right move? You're going to a new country. You're all alone. It's like, you have all these doubts. And then COVID comes along as well. It's like, it just slaps you in the face a bit more. But I think at the end of the day, you find yourself. The culture shock I think I got in London was, you use the train system. You have to use public transport. And one is during peak hours, public transport is really busy, where it feels like you're in a sauna. So it's very difficult. I feel like in South Africa, we just drive around with our cars, and we take a lot of things for granted, I would say, because you take a drive to go see the mountains in Cape Town, drive past the beach, go to work, and you're in your comfort, you're in your zone, you're just chilling, you're relaxing. Whereas in London, it's like you use public transport, you either got to use the bus or the tram, and it's busy. You don't have a choice, but you got to use it. So that's a big culture shock. The other thing as well is also going to shopping, to do grocery shopping. In South Africa, you can just, jump in your car, get your groceries, pack it in. Whereas here, you got to walk to the shopping mall or the grocery center and walk back with your groceries, which is something new that I've not been exposed to. So there's a lot of walking, so a culture shock in that sense. Yeah.
So lots of challenges that have come your way, but you seem to be coping so well. I mean, 6 months gone already.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I think what was nice as well, I think what helped me cope is chatting to family often as well, back home. We also had games nights every second week, every month, which, it was just jovial, meeting your family, chatting to them, speak to mom and dad every day, speaking to, just families and friends as well. I think, to be honest, if I was in Cape Town, I'll still be in the same situation, being at home and talking to everyone online. So I use that concept that even though I'm in London, it's a different country, but I still want to communicate with my family and still be close to them. And I think that keeps me going. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's the same. You're far away as well in Cape Town, from Durban, where your parents are, and now in London. COVID lockdown, the same thing. Indoors, doing whatever you need to do, using technology.
Yeah.
Kerina, you're a very sporty person, playing volleyball in Cape Town, in a team where you used to actually train every week, and you had matches, and then doing your hikes in the beautiful Western Cape. Don't you miss all of that?
I do miss that. I'll be honest, when I moved to Cape Town, I looked for places where I can play volleyball, and it doesn't make sense to do that now because it's more like a touch sport. So with COVID, it wouldn't be safe to do that. I miss playing sport. I've got a mini dartboard that just keeps me going. It's not the same on my own, but I do miss sport a lot. I did try playing some tennis when my friend was in London. So we did play tennis in Hyde Park or in Holland Park. So it would, just be cautious. And what's nice is that, you no one around you at the same time. So, it's just you and your friend that's playing. There's no outsider that's coming in. So that kept me going for a bit as well. Yeah.
So besides your parents, what do you miss the most in South Africa?
In South Africa, I think I miss the scenery, I'll be honest. The mountains, the ocean, just nature. I know in London, I go to the parks to get that nature feel. It's not the same. There's beauty here, but when you're out in nature, you if you go to the ocean, or like in Cape Town, you go to Hermanus, everybody goes to go do whale watching. You go sometimes, you might not see a whale, but when you do, you get so excited. So I miss those moments where you can even go hiking and seeing beautiful waterfalls. I'm a person who tries to, explore my I enjoyed lots of nature in Cape Town. And, I think being out in nature, it also refreshes you. And then when you come back indoors, it, it just alleviates that stress, I would say. So yeah, in Cape Town, I miss hiking, I miss nature, I miss the waterfalls, the beautiful waterfalls. I think now it's winter in Cape Town, it's a lot of rain, so there'll be a lot of beauty to see. And I just hope flights will open soon so I can come back home to visit. And I did, yeah. So I say, yeah, I miss nature the most.
That was actually going to be my next question. Are you waiting for the borders to open so you can visit South Africa and visit family?
Yes, I am. Actually, to be honest, if the borders had to open now and the virus was a bit lower, I would come to South Africa. I also need to ensure that if I do come to South Africa, I need to ensure that my parents are also safe because I need to quarantine before I see them. But it looks like we're going to be working online from home anyway in London until the end of the year. So I would definitely come home in a heartbeat to spend time with family and friends. Yeah.
I can imagine. I'm sure you're missing everyone.
Yeah.
So Kerina, tell me the culture of work. Is it any different to South Africa?
So what I can say so far, right? So the difference so far is I'm working online to South Africa being face-to-face. I miss being in the office. I miss meeting my work colleagues on a regular basis because I felt like in Cape Town, they weren't just my work colleagues, they were also like my friends. Because we used to go to work, I used to be at work from 9, finish off at 6, but I still used to be in the office till sometimes 9 p.m. And that wasn't just because of working, because we used to stay late to socialize, to have dinner, to play board games. So my work colleagues were more like my friends, I would say, in Cape Town. Whereas in London, I feel my colleagues I just know them from a work perspective. We get our work done, but I don't know them on a personal note. But, on both sides, both Cape Town and I would say in the UK, both ends work gets done. I still miss the fact that being face-to-face, I think when you have meetings and all these sessions with your team, it's better to be in the office, because if you have an issue or you need assistance with something, you can just turn around to your teammate and ask them a question. If you ping them on Teams or online every day, it becomes troublesome as well. So you have to watch how you communicate. It is a bit difficult, but at the same time, you also get focus working online, because being in the office, you can, you go on coffee breaks more often, you go on these meetings, you go on lunch. Whereas when maybe because I'm alone also in the apartment, my focus is just work. So when I'm on my PC, it's just focused just on work. What can I do? What can I tick off? What's next? So I feel like I have a higher focus and get more things done, to be honest. Yeah.
And did you get to meet your colleagues?
Yeah, I got to meet them the first 2 weeks before lockdown started. But that's why I say, it becomes difficult because within 2 weeks, you don't know each person personally. You don't know their personality. You don't know, you need to know how to approach people as well. And the team is really, really great. They're very helpful, they're friendly. So it is that balance where we just talk about work, you have a few jokes, here and there. But I still miss the, the interaction, the one-to-one interaction with colleagues. Yeah. Because when you have I'll be honest, when you have like a meeting, there's 6 people online, all 6 of us can't talk at the same time. You get sometimes 2 or 3 people talking at the same time. Some people stay quieter. But when you're in the office, you can see someone's body language. You can see that, someone's about to speak and stuff like that. And you're more, I feel, interactive when you're in the office. So, yeah.
Yes, I think it's important, especially with that personal touch and face-to-face, that personal interaction. And it's something that we have to get used to. This is the new norm now, with COVID-19 that's just come and taken over. We just got to get used to this. It's difficult. We got to stay mentally stimulated as well. And I like the fact that you go to parks and you get that greenery in and just breathing that fresh air. It's so important. So just take me back onto your job itself, because I think that's what I'm really interested in listening to. Do you find that you are accomplished now and that you are into work mode, you know what you're doing, you've settled in, all of that?
Yeah, so with my job, so I'm a quality assurance engineer. So what that means is that the quality that you send out to the customer needs to meet their requirements. So I need to ensure that it meets their requirements. I need the customer needs to be happy. I need to figure out how users are going to use the software to ensure that there's not going to be bugs out live and it's going to come back that we need to fix it. Yeah. So there is within in London, I started off with one team. And started getting involved in so basically I'm in a cashier team. It's got to deal with payments. So got involved with one team, started learning how they use the application, what testing is needed, how the software goes live, how customers use our software. So I upskilled myself to learn this with the team, hand in hand. Basically, you need to work hand in hand with your developer, and also ensure that the quality and the testing that you're doing meets high standard going out. Then as well, I would say there's a QA that also left at the same time when I started. So he eventually resigned and he left in May. So I had to take on 2 teams because he left, and I took on the responsibility because I didn't mind. I like to be busy, I like to be challenged. And both the teams actually work hand in hand with each other because they're both payment teams. So now I'm actually a QA for 2 teams, and I'm always busy, keep myself busy, ensuring the quality that is high that's going out. We also, if I want to give you context, I can go a bit more technical, but so basically
you're going to totally lose me. So
I'm going to lose it, yeah. Okay, let's not go technical. So basically, you just ensure that, whatever goes out, whatever goes live. So basically, if you're using your phone, for instance, I'll just use a scenario, for instance. If you're using your phone, using a Facebook app, and say we need to implement software that you can, on your phone, you can use Facebook, you can scroll, someone posts put a few pictures on their post and you can scroll. So you need to ensure that when someone uses any phone type, for instance, whether it's a Samsung, whether it's a Nokia, whether it's even an old phone, but has a capability to launch the Facebook website, it needs to work. There's a lot involved. You need to know what the requirements are, how the page must render, how the page must be displayed when you're scrolling, what needs to show up. That's just a simple analogy or a simple concept. But you get, harder projects now, when you deal with payments, or even my past companies with telecommunications. I think one company I worked for that did mining and military simulation I feel that was the most challenging, because you have like a 3D world and you have this cab console that you're driving. So you're trying to replicate what you would experience in reality. So they don't damage mining equipment in the mine, and you don't put people's lives at risk. So it all depends on what you're testing. But at the end result, you need to ensure that the quality that's going out meets the client's requirements, and as well as its high standard of quality, that you don't want bugs to, impact the business for us to look bad. Yeah, because we want to look good.
Interesting, very technical.
Yeah, sorry.
Will you at some point come out with your own game?
I don't know about game. No, like I'll give you an example. So now because I'm at home and I'm fiddling around and I have some time on my hands. I'm using I've got this with me. It's a lot of people can do this. It's like a starter kit. Has a lot of components and wires.
No, trust me. A lot of people can't do that.
Oh, but this is not so bad though, and I'll tell you why. If you buy the starter kit, right? It's this starter kit. There's many out there. There's like Raspberry Pis, but this one is Arduino. And what happens is, even though it's electronics and you have to wire, like LEDs, like lights, for instance, all you got to do is you program the board. And say you want the light to blink 5 times, you program the board to blink 5 times. So you have to write it in code. But what helps is you don't need to know this offhand. So what Arduino does, or the starter kit does, is they also supply you with tutorials. So it gets you started. So you can look at the code, and then you can just wire the board, which is simple because they'll give you the diagram and what it looks like. And then you start fiddling around, and then you'll do an easy project and like, okay, I want the LED to blink 5 times, for instance. And then it's like, wow, okay, that can happen. And then you'll be like, okay, let me put another LED. And you just keep going. And then I know the other day I built, because it was hot in London, I built a temperature sensor. So
oh my goodness.
All it does is there's an LCD screen and a sensor that picks up the temperature, and it will display what temperature it's currently at.
That is so interesting. So this takes me back to the question as why electrical engineer? You graduated from DUT with electrical engineering. Yes. And I'm sure you're the one that fiddles with all these light fittings and bulbs and plugs and all of that. I mean, for the life of me, I can't even put a plug together. So why electrical engineering? I'm curious to know that. It's a male-dominated area. Here we have a female, which I think we have a handful of women in the world that's doing electrical engineering. And you have that qualification. Why did you go into that field?
Yeah, so I think from the time I was younger, I was always fidgetive, I would say. If you ask my dad, I was always following him around. Okay, Dad, what you doing? Can I help you? If he's screwing something on, okay, let me screw it. You can watch. So I used to always like to fiddle around, and I have this curious mind. So if something works, like I'll use the example that I actually did in reality. So on my birthday, I got this, I think it was my 10th birthday, I ended up getting a watch where you get the LEDs that come on in blue. And I was like so excited with this watch. But it wasn't just the excitement. I was also like, okay, how does this work? I was like at 10 years old, I'm like, okay, I see this, but how does it work? And then I think a week later, I opened up the watch to see what was happening inside because I wanted to know how all of a sudden a light just comes on and it's a different color. And the actual fact is, I was always curious. I opened that watch, I figured out there was always these wires and coils. I never understood what they were. Now I know the answer to them. I actually broke the watch within that week because I was so curious. But so with my curiosity, it's like I always wanted to fiddle with things and try to understand when it comes to technology. Like, okay, you've got a TV, but like, how does a TV work? What makes it work? Like what component, like people will talk about components or now I know, or electronic diagrams, or capacitors, or resistors. But I was like, okay, but how am I supposed to see, how do I see you? This doesn't make sense in my head. So I tried to always be like, I tried to understand, but I could never do it. And I always used to be fidgetive, always used to change the plugs at home. I think even back then, when our plugs didn't work, Mom would be like, this is a 2-pin plug. I need it to be a 3-pin plug. How do we do this? I will Google it and try to like, okay, Mom, I'll do it for you and we'll figure it out. And then I studied electronic engineering in school because I had that curiosity at a young age. I think it was only 2 schools in Durban that offered it. And I went to Glenhaven Secondary, did technical electronics, and I was blown away. And that's how I ended up studying electronics in university thereafter.
That is so interesting. And I mean, look where you are now. You left South Africa, so experienced and with so much of expertise. You left our beautiful country to go to another country and follow your dreams and your passion. I wish you all the best, and I know you're going to really make a huge career and just grow yourself as an individual. But we'd like to have you back in South Africa at some point.
Yeah, no, definitely. definitely. South Africa is always home to me, I feel. And to be honest, I've come to London to explore and travel like to different countries. But my aim is always to come back to South Africa within a few years. And that was, I always told mom and dad, that's why I want to go now. I feel like I have that, curiosity and that travel bug, as you say. So I just want to explore, but I just hope COVID, goes away soon, so I can start exploring what I like most. Yeah.
COVID's here to stay for a while, unfortunately, but I'm sure we can get to travel. I think we have to do it if we just take the extra precautions and do it. We can't put our lives on hold because of COVID-19 around. But just going back to travel, you're quite an ardent traveler, and I know you've traveled quite a few countries. What stands out for you the most? Which country stands out for you? The culture, the food, the people, what stands out for you?
Country. I would say, I would say there's a few countries. I think one of the best experience I had, though, it would be Ireland. That was because my brother got married in Ireland. It was like I met his in-laws for the first time. They were so friendly. Even the Irish people were like, if you go to a shop, people was just like really, really friendly. I think, that was my best moments, I think, in Ireland, is because spending time with family, seeing people after a long time, meeting new family at the same time. And people are so humble. People are so friendly. The food was really delicious as well. So I would say that. And my second one, I would say, is more or less Switzerland. I love mountains. I love nature. And when I went to Switzerland, I did camping for the first time. So it was things that I've always wanted to do that I ticked off in my bucket list there. And there's just, it's just so many mountains. And you're just out in nature, and it's so beautiful. And even the lakes, everything's just so beautiful. Yeah.
I also love Switzerland. It stood out for me, but my best experience in Switzerland was going to the Lindt factory and eating chocolate. That was my best experience ever. But for me, the country that I actually didn't feel comfortable in was Spain, because I think just a huge language barrier, because a lot of people can't speak English. And I think that's where we had a problem as a family. But other than that, I think, most countries, they all have different cultures. The people are friendly. I think you just have to adapt when you're there. And usually when you travel, it's there for a short time. So just adapt while you're there and just make the most of it. And I think that's exactly what you do. So going on to travel, where to next?
Where to? What's on my bucket list is the highest thing on my bucket list is I can't get the name right now. In Croatia, there's these beautiful waterfalls. There's just like one after the other. So that was the highest on my bucket list, to visit Croatia, as well as Paris in France, because in London it's quite easy to go. There's a train that goes, I think it's a 2.5-hour train that actually goes underwater as well. So that was the two things on my bucket list. Yeah, that was the two things on my bucket list. But it's, things haven't worked out because I have to apply for Schengen visa, even though being in London. And it's a bit difficult having a South African passport in times of COVID now as well. So it's hard to get a tourist visa. And you have to also be cautious on which country you want to visit because of the virus. So if a country has a high number of cases, you want to stay away from there. Yeah.
Yes, I think for now, just take the extra precaution and stay away if you can. If you really have to travel, then do it. But I think, you've just been in London now for a few months. Get to explore London more than anything else, and then you can get out of the country and explore other countries around you. Because I do know in Europe, it's quite cheap when you're living in London to travel, around you. It's like taking a flight from Johannesburg to Cape Town, or from Cape Town to Durban. So I'm sure you're going to be doing lots of countries in Europe. So yeah, I'm jealous. I'm very jealous, actually. Kerina, your last few words, what's your message out to youngsters that want to get into your field? What advice would you give them?
I would say, there's a lot of courses that you can do early on in life to see whether you want to get into this field, whether it's electronics or whether it's even information technology. So I would say start doing going into information technology at a young age in school. Schools offer this, as well as start at university, see whether it's something that you like. and like to do. Because remember, everything you study or everything that you do, you must have a passion for it. So when you have a passion, you wake up every morning and you enjoy going to work, right? So I would say start early, fiddle around like I did as well. I don't think it's that difficult. And I feel like if you start at an early age, you grasp the concepts much faster. And you have a head start when you graduate from school, going to university, and even sometimes you could even start a job directly and not even go to university sometimes, if you have a head start with programming or electronics, because you already got the knowledge. So I would say keep doing that. And there's also a lot of courses online on LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, Safari Books. There's plenty of information and material out on the web. So I would say, just watch a YouTube video, like, fun projects that you can do, like robotics or robots and stuff. And you'll see, if you have an excitement, try and see, let me do a course and see what it's all about. Yeah.
I love that. I love that message. Thank you, Kerina, and to everybody that's listening and watching as well. Here you go. We're fighting for equality. We have women in a man's world doing a man's job. Yes, we can do it. So why not? Go out, explore, find your passion, find your dreams, and just upskill yourself, and the world is your oyster. Thank you, Kerina, for coming on board and chatting to us, and I'm sure you have important messaging out there to the youngsters. I wish you well in everything, all the best in London, and we'd like to have you back in South Africa.
Thank you so much. Thank you.